Guys, I'd like to introduce Pat Kowalt, who's a former full-time member, now alternate member, sitting in for our missing member. How's that sound? Yeah, and that's my point. Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy Roach. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure.
And amazingly, we have a couple of minutes before start. I'm so accustomed to being and feeling that. No. Okay, so my timing is off. The mic is for the liaison. Actually, going forward to the
People here give a lot of options, you know, a lot of options.
It's been a while. 2004 to 2009.
I'm glad you remember it.
I was thinking about it.
One of the things that I realized about teaching is that the chronology of the end somebody gets completely cool. So I would say things like 8 years senior or junior, realizing that I'm way off.
Yeah.
Imagine.
It does. And I do remember this one, which I know. With a couple of exceptions, one
State of pride.
at least for the foreseeable future, this is going to be.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like,
I think they pretty much decided that
Can't get parts.
was that what it is?
Last night, I was just viral.
Cheese.
Getting service.
We must move a little fast because that was they had to get a new algorithm. It'd be easier to launch. Somebody would or build an
Yes.
Maybe that's just a bit from, I don't know. Okay. And I'm going to start the day for the payroll.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
The projector too, maybe this was bulb from the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that could be. Anyway, pity the people watching at home.
So I can sit there with the camera because we have it set up just right for the projector.
That's how it would be. We'll get started in just a moment.
The projector too.
Taking this personally.
Well, yeah, good for him. I mean, I'm just so happy on this shows. I think some of the kids across the streets also.
Yeah.
Everybody, that's 7 o'clock, so I think we can go live. We are live? Okay, so everybody, I'm going to open this special meeting of the Review Board, excuse me, and Historic Preservation Commission of the Village of New Paltz for a meeting Monday, December 19th, 2022, opening the meeting at 7 p.m. We do have a couple of things, but our main agenda item is item C, consider an application for a certificate of appropriateness with public hearing, HPC 2210, represented by Jeremy Robinson Leon, Moonrise, New Paltz LLC. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes of the November meeting? Any changes? Stephen, did you see anything that needs?
And I would move that they be accepted as presented.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor of acceptance? Super welcome, as always. I think if there are updates, they'll come later from Bill. So let's go right to item Chairman, let me hand this over. We've met, we've had a good conversation already, but nobody else was privy to that. So why don't you start from the beginning and maybe just walk us through the application, and then if you want to add on any results of our conversation.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate it. And first I want to thank everyone for being here and calling this special meeting. I'm sure that everybody has an exceptionally busy December, and these couple of weeks are probably the busiest of all. So thank you so much for meeting on short notice for us. We really appreciate it. And thank you especially to Valerie for walking us through this entire process and being incredibly thoughtful and generous with her time. Okay, so we represent Moonburger up in Kingston. The business name Moonrise New Paltz LLC fits in with our annoyingly complex structure that our lawyer had us set up before we were anything, but hopefully it'll be right in long term. But anyways, our parent company, quote unquote, is Moonrise Hospitality LLC. We have a DBA as Moonburger. You may know that we opened in Kingston a little more than a year ago in October. I don't know if any of you have ever been, but we are right off the thruway between the two Quick Check gas stations, sandwiched right between a very tiny little building that used to be the Ice Cream Castle, which I live in Marbletown. I had driven by for years, and it had been sitting on and off the market for a long time. And I would always drive by and say, there's something possible there. It's just, it's such a great location and a very charming little building. And so I was very fortunate to wake up one day and this idea just came into my mind, and here we are. So Moonburger is a classic burger stop imagined for now and made for everyone. Very simple, we serve great burgers and fries and shakes. And the big secret, not so secret with Moonburger, is that all of our burgers are made with impossible meat. It is plant-based. And so we truly are doing something at Moonburger in Kingston that nobody else in the country is doing, no other plant-based concept. And that is truly creating a product, a burger that is for the mainstream, people who otherwise would eat a beef burger, who are meat and potatoes folks who love meat and will come and try it because it's accessible and it looks interesting and captivating. It draws you in. And then whether they've ever had anything like that in their lives before, come back and become regular customers. We have an awesome offering for all of our vegetarian and our of course, our vegetarians and our vegan friends, and that's just as important as anything else. But really, you will not find a plant-based brand in America that has more of a cross section of construction guys in big pickup trucks who come by and eat a plant-based burger, and people who are just stopping on the side of the thruway to charge their Tesla and come by. So we're very excited to be here now. I, in the 2000s, was a student at Vassar and I was there from 03 to 07. And so this, if I would never in a million years would have believed you if you told me 20 years ago that I'd be sitting in this room talking about opening a plant-based burger spot with all of you. So I have to say that it is very surreal for me. It is also it's emotional for me. This is a place that had a special place in my heart, my experience at Vassar. If your parents came to visit, you would go up to Rhinebeck, and if you were going on a date, you'd come to New Paltz. And so that was an important part of my Vassar experience. So anyways, cutting to the chase, we have this very tiny little space, like our Kingston space, very, very tiny, sandwiched between two much bigger buildings, with, everybody knows, Mexicali Blue. They had great burritos. We're hoping to take the space forward into its next life. We are going to really completely transform the interior. If you've walked by there anytime recently, you see that you now would open up the door and you would be deep in the earth. It is only dirt in there now. We took out the entire floor, which was unfortunately rotted in, but it will be a much more stable and safe building when we're done with it. The inside is going to look awesome. What we were going for on the exterior, and this was designed by Home Studios. They're a really awesome design studio based in New York City. They do mostly kind of very hip fine dining restaurants and hotels and things like that in the city and around the country. We would never in a million years be able to afford them otherwise, but one of my best friends and also an advisor on the Moonburger team is the design director over there, so they're very generous with us, and we're very lucky for that. They do incredible work. I'd highly recommend just checking out their website at some point. It's really beautiful stuff. We love that they apply their aesthetic to fast food, which is what it is. For the exterior, we're going for something that felt very simple, classic, and distinctive. And just like we did with our space in Kingston, is we want it to feel very familiar and rooted in something nostalgic. This is classic fast food, kind of the roadside burger spot or soda fountain, but that also feels very future forward at the same time. So that's really that note that we're trying to hit. Would you like me to describe any of the materials or anything like that, or should I pause? I know I'm going on and on.
Does everybody feel like you'd need that? I mean, we have seen the application.
Yes.
But I don't think it's a bad idea just to walk us through what you're thinking.
So one of the challenges that we had this challenge in Kingston 2 is that it is a very tiny building, and we really are sandwiched right there between Manning's and P&G's, and so we wanted, without being loud with crazy color or anything like that, to still have something that kind of drew your eye when you were scanning the block. And so Home and we felt like tile was a really good classic material. I realized, and Tom was very thoughtful with talking about the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Certainly, if there's not maybe any tile, we saw a lot of stone veneer around, and so we felt like a hard material, like a tile, and just the kind of associations with kind of the classic burger stop would make sense with that. It also has a little bit of shine, as tile does, so that helps to draw the eye a little bit. In a tile version, this would be a painted sign, hand painted. So again, look kind of classic like that. The painting on tile. This is a bench that will be able to move, but is mainly intended to stay there, and that would be a tile bench as well. This kind of moon-like sconce on the front is mostly just accent, and they would just have. And I apologize, they're not in this rendering. I think they're later in the application on the plan, but just a couple of downward-facing lights that just light up the signs. It's just not illuminated, obviously. We did, after we spoke to Tom and fully understand the question around tile, is we had Home Studios create, and I'm just pass this out, a version. Honestly, in this rendering, it doesn't look a whole lot different, but this would be a brick veneer painted white instead of a tile. And, I'll just say, the most important thing to us and, our philosophy is number one, that we are a great employer. We have about 20 team members up at our place in Kingston. That is the most important thing to us, right there with being a great neighbor. The very first call I made was to the Chamber of Commerce in Kingston, the Ulster County Chamber of Commerce, covered here still. And that's because I think number one is the right thing to do, to be a good neighbor, to be part of the local community, to be a member of the business community, first and foremost, and to be something that is accessible for our local communities before anything else. And that extends to this. We by no means want to create anything over here that is going to be controversial, or that you all feel does not fit in with the character. My personal view, and I'm by no means an expert on this, I really like the tile. I think that it provides what we need in terms of being a little distinctive, but also will feel very, very tasteful and classic. But I also fully understand if there are differing opinions on that, and we will yield.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Michael, do you want to?
No, I mean, I think Jeremy covered all the remarks. We're just really excited to be part of this community. We have a really good team of people back in Kingston that are very eager to continue growing.
They're excited
Many
to
of
come here.
them, yeah, many of them started out as team members, hourly like hamburger cooks, and we promoted them to managers. So we're excited to shepherd their development.
Thank you, then, Jeremy. That's great. Maybe I'll just jump in and give a little context for the conversation we had. I did something that I can't remember ever doing quite so explicitly, which was ask for a meeting just to express my concern about the file. I love the design, and I say on the record, I love this aesthetic. I'm worried about its appropriateness for Main Street, and I thought the worst thing I could do is just let you guys come in without any warning that I have that opinion. I hope you'll back me on this. I also said I'm not speaking for the commission, so it was just a kind of way of making sure they knew that I had concerns about that, and at the same time, I'm not speaking for anybody's concerns or non-concerns about it. One of the things that's starting to clarify for me is we're kind of, if you want to look at it in a really hostile way, which I don't, we're kind of at cross purposes. You want distinctiveness, we want appropriateness, or at least that's our charge. And I feel like there's probably a happy medium here. After all, we're looking at a very bright blue, the only bright blue building in New Paltz. I think that there's some room to make this work out if other people have the same concerns I do. And if not, when it finally comes down to it, we vote on this commission and majority carries. So I just wanted to share that as a matter of context. I don't usually do that, but given that we decided to go to a special meeting, given that we're on something of a time frame, I thought it was just best to be honest about that. I could be convinced otherwise, but my first reaction is, really beautiful design. Look around Main Street, and I just don't see appropriateness. We did talk about the white brick as a possible alternative. I think I also threw out maybe just keeping the stucco and going with a very quartzy white paint that gave some of that shininess that you're looking for. And another idea, and I don't know if I think it's doable. I don't know what studio would do it. Possibly to do the Moonburger in tile, so that you get some of that tile, but it's ultimately something that would be removed in the event that Moonburger moves on and needs more space, which I kind of hope happens, but not right away for your sake or our sake. So everybody, that was just the context of our conversation, which was probably about a half an hour standing up, excuse me, in front of the shop on a pretty rainy day. So let's have a conversation before we open public hearing, which we agreed to do.
I've actually got a question, not about the tile at the moment, but about that bench. I walked by tonight and I noticed that the bench and that wall are both gone. And that was for a certain period of time where people were dining outside. So you're removing that option for certain people. Will there be any interior dining to make up for that, or will this?
Yes, so we will have, very small space, but we really wanted to, unlike Kingston, which is drive-through only, we're actually really excited that this will be our first space in which our guests can enter and experience. And so we will have 4 or 5 bar stools at the window looking out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that the outdoor bench would be movable, as in?
Yeah, it'll be quite heavy, but it will not be affixed to the earth.
Okay, because many things move around at 4 a.m. in New Paltz. You might be surprised.
Yes.
about-
Yes. Skateboarding.
Yes, it'll be very heavy, but not, but what I mean by movable is not affixed to the ground to be able to move it if it needed to be. But our hope too is that bench can can be multi-purpose, and of course for our guests who are waiting or eating their food, but also just to passers-by to hang and have another place to sit on Main Street.
From the movable bench, and how people are sometimes rowdy and try to move objects that are not movable. The tile might break, there is a concern that vandalism could happen. There might be tiles on the facade and on the bench as well. And cleaning the grout would be an issue, especially on a busy street with heavy traffic.
Absolutely.
That could become a problem for sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
That's a great question on this, and would have to check because it doesn't show in this rendering, but it may be that the intention with home studios was to have like a light gray grout for that reason. It's great. All the interior spaces do, or at least the floor does, has actually quite dark grout because we have we hope to have, if we get it flat enough, a penny tile on the floor, and so that the grout is going to be turned very dark very quickly, and so we have to lean it. We have to lean into that. Yes. Great.
For me also, I'm embarrassed to say, but maybe people might associate tiles and like restrooms or something like that, and drunk people may defile the tile in other ways.
Interesting.
So-
Yeah. Listen, no, it's a.
This is New
This
Paltz.
is a free and full discussion.
Yes, I was in college once too. So.
But it could happen. And, also, what kind of tile are you thinking of? Ceramic or porcelain? Or there are so many different kinds of tiles.
So let me.
I didn't see any specifications.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, and tell you exactly what, so I don't get it wrong. I apologize. I don't mean to hold anything up on doing this. I'm happy to answer other questions. Exterior tile, dull tile, ceramic, pearl white, 4x4.
Yeah, because ceramic tile tends to be more porous than porcelain, and since you remove the oil, water damage and freeze and thaw cycles can affect.
I know that there was a bunch of conversation around freezing and the outdoor rating, and honestly stuff that's outside of my pay grade, but yes,
But it's
Yes.
clearly been chosen with that purpose in
Yes.
mind. Okay.
100%.
Jeremy, I just caught on your screen, but Val, for your notes, I think I saw a TL.
It's on, it's also.
For those who can get that. Yeah, there it is. TL 08.
Yeah.
By Dal Tile.
Oh,
it's 01B.
Oh, is it B?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Apologies.
You'll trust me.
Yeah, it's,
My old eyes.
And the note from Home Studio says may use TL01A as an alternative. I don't know what the alternative is, but
And our colleague Shane had some, he is not present today. He had some questions about the installation of the tile, especially where the corners meet. How are they going to be dealt with? Is there going to be some kind of corner tile applied? Or
between the other two buildings.
yeah, especially that outside edge. I think we talked about that the day I met with you. His concern was, let's see, he was asking about mitered or bullnose tiles to turn that outside corner. And I think your builder, Vinny, was it?
Yes.
Vinny
Yes.
was saying, well, he in effect said the easy way is to run it's an aluminum strip. And the Schluter, there it is, Schluter. Shane was concerned about that, probably not consistent with the desired aesthetics, so whatever the cleanest edge condition that can be achieved with the tile is preferred in his opinion. So that would be a rounded, you can get something that's L-shaped perhaps, or you can get a full nose edge and just make it, I don't know what I'm sure that a tiler would know what the best way to run it is, whether the bull nose rounds the short edge, I would assume, or the other way.
Sure. And from my perspective, I think the absolute cleanest and simplest would be the best is just to have the tile as much as possible appear to be intersecting with the building with a clean line, as opposed to putting on any kind of edge, or shooter.
I mean, they're a great product in that they give you a little wiggle room on an edge that may not be as plumb as you'd like. But that's Shane's contribution on that point. He also asked, will the casing around the door and window also be made of the same material as the white tile? Can the door window size location be slightly adjusted so the casing lands cleanly within the grid of the white tiles? And I suspect the answer is no, that the aperture is the aperture. He's wondering about tiles that don't line up with the width of the door.
Right. I love that. Those little details drive me crazy when I'm looking at them. So I love that.
He's extremely good.
He's a detail-oriented
He's
person.
our architect, or near architect, and so he does think about these details.
That is a great question.
Imagine possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would probably be difficult for us to change the frame, the size of where the window lands without a lot of expense. We're keeping that window as, we're gonna freshen up the frame certainly, but keep the window just for budget. All the money in the world to spend, I wish we did. But I'm trying to see here. I think, from Home's perspective, I think the more, I'm just trying to see if I have a view here. Oops. So yeah, it's just, let's see. they do have in the view that it does land at, you will have to cut the tile with this view.
You do not. do
You will,
Okay.
yes, just because, the 4-inch obviously won't line up perfectly within.
So I think that part of, he was worried about a slim margin of tiles around the window and to the left of the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we know what we're talking about, where you have 4 and then a 3/8 of an inch.
Yeah.
I don't know if molding would potentially solve that, but you didn't really want traditional molding, right?
Right, and not. Just trying to see if I can show you. Using it slightly. Just trying to really. Just trying to see if I could zoom in even further to show you all what it looks like. So, but yes, you can see, so you do get that slim margin. And I don't know because I'm not one of the designers, but all I know in speaking for them is that they wouldn't do that if they weren't comfortable with it. If they're comfortable, I'm comfortable with it from an aesthetic perspective, not to say that everybody would be.
Yeah, I think that's answered to the best of our ability to answer it now. His last observation, the western edge or outside corner that meets Manny's shows a flat vertical white band, presumably of tiles on the street facing outside corner.
Is that wall,
I think, yeah.
the opposing wall?
Yeah.
That will definitely still, that's just not reflected in the rendering over here. So that will be Manny's stone veneer.
That remains Manny.
That is Manny's.
Okay.
I don't know how that happened exactly, because it is either the same or a very similar brick stone veneer that runs onto the Mexicali space and Manny's.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if when that was done, if they did it at the same time and just agreed to do that, but yeah, so our building will meet that stone over there.
Yeah, I think you've answered that question. Okay. Pat, do you have questions or observations?
Just another question, if I may. I noticed that you remove the awning. Well, that would be a practical feature, actually, to have an awning, if the weather is, when people are waiting outside, or if it's too sunny.
Yeah.
And maybe the awning would become a cool design feature if you use the moon or the colors, either a red awning with white lettering or the opposite.
Yeah, also a great question that I would love to put to the home folks. I mean, my personal preference is I don't love the idea of an awning, but subjective. And send folks over to P&G's 50-foot awning, our landlords.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
It's a practical reason.
And again, I know that home's aesthetic is, and I think you see it reflected here, is just as simple as possible. Just kind of strip it back to a wall and bench and a light and a sign. But I wish I could have them here to ask you.
Based on your experience in Kingston, and I'm thinking with the foot traffic and people waiting, what's the average time to fill the average order?
We're working on it every day.
Yeah, we're trying to get faster. We can probably fill an order in 4 minutes or less when we're in dine-in.
Because you're ideally going to have a steady stream of traffic through most meal periods, and when the climbers come back or hikers come back from being out all day, you're going to have You know, you could have, you know, quite a few people, and Mexicali Blue did,
Yeah.
you know, had people lining up. And will you be taking online orders and or phone, or only online, or walk-ins also?
We are super excited that this is the first opportunity for us to really utilize technology, and we'll be able to do online order ahead, eventually delivery, hopefully ASAP, as well as counter service, and basically everything except for drive-thru, everything that we're not doing.
I'm curious about that technology. Is there a way that somebody then knows that your order is 10 minutes from being filled?
Yeah, you can schedule pickup time, so you know, they'll say they wanted it 12:15 and we prepare it so we meet that deadline. So the goal is they walk in and it's ready for them.
And we should be able to also, we're still working out some of the technology, but when somebody orders on site, is be able to send a text message when the order is ready, you know, as opposed to having to shout a name or number.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost reading my mind. So, you know, that bench is maybe a 3-person bench if everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
It would be a cool thing for you. I mean, I think it'd be a great advantage if people know that they're 25 minutes away or whatever it is, and just a little longer. Go down to one of those books and have a browse for 20 minutes and then come back to it.
One of the
That's
things,
something you could potentially even advertise.
I want to just show you with, show your website, but we, you know, the tagline for Moonburger is "Go Anywhere," and that has always, that's been intended to be an idea, give you a feeling of boundlessness, some optimism, of better future. It's also quite literal. I mean, this is to-go food. We are drive-through in Kingston, and we literally are always going somewhere with it. I think we really want to lean into that here as well, because most people are not going to be dining in. Some will. But when you come to Kingston, we have, and I don't have a photo of it, but I can show you what it looks like on the website, is we have a little bag closure with a QR code, and it says, I don't know the exact copy, but it's something like scan for, you know, great local spot to enjoy your Moonburger within 10 minutes of the restaurant. And you scan the QR code and it brings up this page on the website, actually, and the reservoir, uptown, and you can basically scroll through and then you click a button and it'll bring you up to Google Maps. And so we want to do that here as well. Yeah, and so, you know, on the bag, and that's where we can partner with other businesses, with local organizations to send people to great spots around.
I mean, I think Huguenot Street and we could be helpful in that.
Would love that. It'd be cool to do like create tours and things, and you know, if there, I mean, you know, if there's a way to incorporate that in a fun way with us, we'd love it.
I wonder if it could just be linked to something like the What's On page of, I don't know if that part's open in Hudson Valley One. That's probably too bad. But anyway, great idea. Good. Well, colleagues, any other observations or questions? We are scheduled for a public hearing and we should open that at some point.
I just have a question. I'm sorry. Are you completely opposed to the idea of just having stockholder?
Not completely opposed to anything. And really, you know, I mean it when I say that we really want to be thoughtful and respectful of the street, of the community, of the neighborhood, and of all of you, and we have much more history and perspective than we do here. So we are going to do what you feel like is most appropriate. Stucco is probably my least favorite, just because I think it's the least interesting. Not to say that we, you know, I mean, it'll still look nice, but I would say brick would be certainly my preference if it's not tiled, just to have a little bit more character. But
Since it's such a small stone. And you have stone veneer on one side, you have cedar shingles on the other. I'm just a bit worried that the tile might be too busy with those other elements next to each other. And really, it has never been used in the past. It's not a material that's part of the vernacular.
Right.
There, and I'm not sure it would be correct to set a precedent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we love the graphics and everything. It's really, it might also be easier to apply, if you just have a smooth surface, because painting on tile, you have to consider the graph lines and everything. And since you proposed 4x4 tiles, you would have a lot of graph lines, so you would have a lot of wavy edges.
My neighbor, who is an amazing artist, he painted at Kingston, we have the chimney in the back is painted like a rocket ship, and he painted that for us. And I had already recruited him for this, and I said, "That's your problem." And he said, "I'm up to this." So, be that as it may. And I'll just say too, with the if we did do a brick option, our hope is that we would then instead do a carved sign, dimensional, like half-inch or something like that comes out, because painting the brick would not look very good. Again, not a lit sign, but more like a Starbucks sign that's just dimensional letters.
Can you use the term a what sign? I just missed.
Dimensional?
Dimensional.
Yeah.
Is that what you said initially? Makes perfect sense. It has some
Sure.
carved. Carved is what I meant.
Thank you. Not sure what.
Anything else? Okay, how about a motion to open public hearings? If there's any public?
Public meeting.
She said that she might join in this room. Because she has some opinions.
Yeah. Is there a second to open public hearing? Seconded by Pat. All those in favor? Okay, so public hearing is open, which means we turn our attention to Valerie to see if there's any comment from the public. No, okay. I was going to point out that Michael is
In public.
I'll just say he's a member of the public.
So a little historical context. In the near term, that stone was added when they put that bench on. Sometimes the planet board was on it, and it had previously all been stucco on that side. And then further back, I'll just point out that when Manny's stuccoed their building back in the day, it was hugely controversial because there weren't any other stucco buildings, and everybody thought it was pretty outrageous. So that it's now become a vernacular strikes me as sort of interesting.
It'll all be tile in 20 years.
So,
Do you remember when the stucco was done? I think it's more than 20 years.
it was actually before I moved here, which was 5 years ago. And then, that's not true because it was something else, and then they redid it.
Yeah,
They
I feel
stuccoed
like in
it.
my time.
It was about 20 years ago. That they redid the exterior of the building and put those some of the decorative stuff on the upper floor and stuff. So anyway, that's
No, that's helpful too.
yeah.
I will just follow by saying I don't think that stuff is very successful in New Paltz, particularly this little bit of it we're getting looks so generic and strip molly and, I mean, this is water under the bridge. There was no design review at this point in time, but, they're just that, as you say, introduced stuff into the downtown, I think to the detriment of the downtown. There's one other little historical part I think I can add. I think I'm remembering this correctly, but almost all of Main Street is 2 and 3 story, except that stretch, which was stables, which is why it was never, am I right? This one? I've been going back to the reconnaissance level survey that explained why there's like this missing tooth in the middle of Main Street, and it was a stable, I think, maybe for the casino or something like that.
That makes sense.
I wish that I had looked that up, but anyway, those are just observations. Michael, do you have other, I mean, it's really the public's turn now. Do you have other thoughts or impressions or questions?
In terms of, I mean, I feel sort of one foot in both places. So, no, not really. I mean, I think a lot of the concerns that you raised from a practical point of view about tile are fine and probably sensible for the applicant to consider. But I think having a distinctive facade like brick or something like that would be fine in that location. Given that that area of Main Street is already somewhat eclectic architecturally. And it's a relatively small building compared to the buildings a bit further down the street. So
That's certainly a fair point, that that upper part of Main Street is a little less architecturally consistent. One of the things that originally inspired me to be thinking more about design review is McGillicuddy's across the street, which I think I mentioned this. I think per se is not a bad design, but just introduce this really relevant set of design features to that part of the Main Street. So that's, I think, is a fair point, and one we should consider is that this end of Main Street already has a big mix. There's also stucco on the early Ben Street building from our gas station. Colleagues, we don't have any other comments from the public, so I guess the next move would be to close public hearing and discuss and deliberate. No, nobody chimed in, though.
Of all those letters you sent out.
Yeah. Well, this isn't unusual. I think maybe in the context of that, I should at least summarize comments from Misha, who is technically a member of the public but has been considering joining this commission. So there's a little bit of context there. She did not give a lot of detail, but did not care for the file design. So I do her the honor of representing that view. I can't think of anything else from the public, so perhaps if somebody would like to move that we close. All those in favor? Okay, so 4-0 for closing public hearing. I'll introduce one thing that I haven't said, but we talked about privately. I think that the movability of the bench, if it is to be a tile bench, is a big plus for me, because it makes it not a permanent feature. And there are kind of two categories that we have to think about: permanent features versus non. So paint is not a permanent feature. Next week you can change paint. Door openings, fenestration, roof lines are basically permanent, and they've been for a long time. So I think the bench, by being, not architecturally part of the structure. I mean, it is definitely part of the design structure, but architecturally helps me feel better about a tile bench for sure. And I would say actually maybe a simple bolting to the sidewalk could save you a lot of grief, because that really looks like a fraternity kind of prank to me, just sitting waiting, right? Somebody figures out it's very heavy, but all you need is 8 guys to defy Moonburger at 4 a.m.
Heavy is relative.
And it is relative. But I would not object if, you know, a semi-permanent feature is in fact removable with the right kind of wrench or bolt. And then I'm sorry to say, I'm still not really convinced the tile is okay with me. I feel a little better about brick. Honestly, I feel better about stucco painted really bright white to try to achieve the thing that I know you want, and I want you to have. Like, I do want it to be visible, but I feel just kind of bound by this conservative idea that Main Street just doesn't have that on it. And I wondered if do you have any chance to give thought to possibly making the Moonburger sign out of tile?
I think that the main consideration for me, just budget, is so yes to thought.
Okay, good.
but I think the expense of doing it is just going to be a lot. I love the
Do you
idea.
think? I mean, I'm looking at all that. I mean, if you were to go stucco and paint it as white and as sparkly as you can buy, you've massively cut down on the tile installation. Admittedly, putting 4x4 tiles is a lot faster than other kind, but you're going to have to make a sign anyway.
Yes.
If that sign were red penny tiles that then had to be ground off on a base, I don't know what that work would entail, but I think it's technically feasible.
Yeah.
Um,
I think if it were a stucco facade, I think that we probably would want to consider something like that to make it pop a little bit more. That's also why I'll just reiterate. I think my I love the tile. I like the brick a lot too. I don't feel it's going to be awesome no matter what. We could, the interior is going to be really cool. And so regardless of what the exterior looks like, I think we're gonna be in great shape, and I'm confident with the input of everybody here, we're gonna get to that. I would say my my preference would be for the brick, if not the tile, but you tell us what it is, and we're gonna make it work.
I think brick at least is in the idiom of the street. By and large, we don't have painted brick, and putting up brick and then painting it pretty much means it's always going to be painted brick. As Bill said, that's a very small little slice of Main Street, so I think I'd certainly be willing to have that conversation. One of the things that has struck me all along is that you've got enough glass there that tile effect, you're going to get that no matter what's decided tonight. These people walking by will see this cool,
For sure. Yes.
white and red tile, and I have the chance to see your drawings for the inside.
I'm happy to. I know we're not deliberating on that, but if anybody's interested in seeing what the interior looks like, so and I hope that doesn't affect your vote on the exterior. Let's see if I can.
That would be fun to show.
So this is the interior, and this too is all tile, right? And it's going to really gleam in there, and I'll show you to this border around is going to be very likely acrylic over 3 neon tubes, and so it just creates this really cool effect. And again, trying to do something that feels kind of classic, especially with the curvature, but that will feel very modern at the same time. And so you can just see the stools there. This is an ordering kiosk. So you can order a kiosk or order at the counter with a live person. And then you will get this, this view out if you're sitting there, and we have these sconces that are repeated on the inside, very similar to the one on the exterior, to kind of give a little bit of a spaceship-like feel. And then the ceiling, we have this really cool moon light that will glow and feel, we hope, in execution, kind of like a planetarium.
Sounds like 10 feet from the front door to the counter. For order.
About, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
it's
a
tight.
tiny space.
Yeah,
I mean,
tiny
I know
space.
that that's a very tiny space.
Yes. Oh, wow.
This is P and G's in 1900.
Wow. And so
where
that's
you-
us.
That's you.
That's amazing. Where is this photo? Is that something we can access? Is this
Oh,
on the
yeah.
website?
Let's do reconnaissance.
This is,
Very cool.
yeah, if you go to this preservation commission.
Yeah, that's something we can share with you.
It's this document. Which is, so you can get it as a PDF on the village website.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
My mom has worked in history museums for my entire life. She's the head of the museum studies program at Tufts, and we grew up in the center of Acton, Massachusetts, in a 1817 house. So I fully appreciate.
I think it's
and,
coming across.
We want
that
to.
explains
That's why I
it.
really do follow all of your leads.
Actually, by the cars.
That's awesome. Right there. Yeah, yeah, this is cool. And Starbucks.
Starbucks,
Oh,
which used to be a 2-story, 3-story hotel.
Yeah, boy, things do change. Could I just add one other practical thing? Which we talked about that Grizzly Day. Some thought about a drip edge. So whatever that facade material ends up being, currently it has that, I don't know, 2-inch or so projection. And I think that's actually functional to keep rain off the facade.
We did discuss that with the designers, and yeah, I think something as simple as that, as nondescript as and subtle as we can make it, but basically exactly that. So yes, so thank you for
Okay,
that. That was great.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry that isn't reflected in the design.
And it's too bad that it has to be, because again, I'm looking at the design on the right, and it's just so classic and good, and it's probably not helped by that drip edge, but keeping it as subtle as can be probably won't harm anything.
I should also say, not that this is necessarily hasn't come into this conversation, but we just have not had them change it. But I don't actually love the rocket ship over there, that particular rendering of the rocket ship. So I think that will not be there.
Okay. Do you think that, are you envisioning just pure white then?
I think likely, or I mean, those words at the top where to, or to me, if it was something much more subtle and less loud than that, actually. I think that was a little bit of an afterthought that was supposed to be more of a placeholder, but I could imagine like something very like a little tiny stripe with a tiny little rocket ship or something, just like a Easter egg type design element as opposed to something big.
Swirling,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Jet stream.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would favor that. Colleagues, I think we should let's go around and talk about where you are on the design and the questions that have been raised.
Thank you for answering all the questions that you have. I think I prefer the brick to the tile. I think the brick would be a better design element for the community, and I think a dimensional sign would give you a lot of pop in the space. You know, I can't really plan for the future of the space. Endeavors come, endeavors go. You may grow out of the space. I think you have potential for making a lot of money in that space. I mean, you'll have a lot of foot traffic. I think, you know, your business, you've proven to do well in Kingston, and I think you would do well here. I think that the brick would be a lot more reflective of Main Street. I'm not sure that stucco would be, I would recommend stucco. You know, it's certainly not that well executed at Manny's. It could be, you know, it could be better. It is, as Val said, a very small space. So I don't think any design element would be really overwhelming, but I do think that the brick would be far superior to the tile or the stucco.
This on the tile seems to be a very permanent feature, because if another business moves in, if you expand your restaurant, it would be much more difficult to remove. And the brick seems to be a less, not less permanent, but we have precedent of it, so it's a feature that could be more versatile, so to speak. I'm not opposed to the stucco if it's well executed, and maybe I'm not sure what would be the most economical solution. Brick versus the stucco.
Oh, I think stucco probably is a lot cheaper in the, it's mostly there.
Because if you just, you know, do some repairs and repaint what's there, I don't know, would you remove that little band
Yes.
under the sign?
Yes. Yeah, I think we'll open it up. Whichever direction, just have a flat surface.
So I'm not quite sure whether brick or stucco, but I would definitely prefer brick over tile. I feel the same way about brick over tile, but what color brick?
I think white is good. Either white to
Or could
begin
it be
with.
more white instead of gray white, or
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're discussing possibilities, maybe an off white.
although that does take away.
And you kind of have a color scheme that maps onto your logo.
It is the white and the red.
And it's
Is the
white.
yes.
Yeah.
Our bag is, you know, it looks very classic. It's just a bright white with the Bloomberger top on.
You know that maybe recently when Lemon Schools was renovated, and some people were complaining about the bright white enclosure in the
Yeah,
front.
just the outdoor.
What was the
I don't know exactly the name of the paint that they used, but
It is a very
It's a
bright
bright
white, it's a
white.
nice white.
and you
Just
know,
think
it's
about what you want.
probably those cool bright colors are associated with modern architecture, not necessarily a historic town. Maybe that's why. So I'm not sure that the brightest white would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can see even in this photo that the rendering from home that they didn't drop up. This is actually a little bit of an off-white. I mean, if you could compare it to the other rendering, and it's a little hard to see in this light, but this is definitely a slight off-white they have. I suspect they probably didn't want something exactly like this paper is like the brightest. I also do think, I suspect I would have to ask them, but I think it'll probably read a little bit richer if it is not a full off white, but has a hint of
Yeah, maybe a creamy.
character, a little bit more.
Yeah. Milkshake color.
There you go. Oat milk.
Yeah. Thank you. Pat. Anything else from you? Pat? Okay. Yeah, I'm somewhere between stucco because it's there and there's stucco adjacent to it, and brick because it is a material that has a home on Main Street. Were you thinking if it were to be brick, is it standard size bricks, so roughly, I believe, 2x6?
I believe so. Yeah, there was no discussion of anything other than that.
Okay. I wish I knew. I was on Main Street today and I didn't think to look. I don't know what most of the buildings on Main Street do with grout, with mortar, whether it's smooth or if there's a little bit of space. But if brick ended up being the decision, maybe you'd want to look at that nuance and just see it. And it may be that it's not consistent, and that might be your best outcome. Freehand in what you do. One other thing that I'm really happy to see in your design is I actually think the kind of cacophony of hanging signs on Main Street isn't always as well done as it could be. This isn't a particularly obnoxious one, but I think it's going to clean up that space to have the signage on the same plane as the front, as the facade. If brick ended up being the compromise or the decision of the commission, do you think you still want penny tile on the bench? Or would that turn to something else?
So the original design was this has 4x4 tile on the bench with the in the tile facade, and they changed that to the penny with the brick. Again, I don't know exactly, but my assumption is that, I mean, that was a decision that they definitely made when they changed this to brick, and so that they just felt like that had a better interplay with the brick with the penny tile. I guess a 4x4 tile next to brick would be a sort of strange.
Yeah, to me that's dissonant.
So yeah,
I would steal that bench.
yeah.
Um,
I do like how I like how the penny. I think the penny tile. I think it looks pretty cool with the, with the contrast of the brick, and kind of make both pop in interesting ways.
yeah, to me, if brick is the decision, I think penny tile is a lot better.
Yes.
Michael, are you prepared to have your team scrub it every day? Because I kind of think it's going to be that.
I think, and I think, I don't want to speak too much for Michael, but he joined us recently. I've known him for a long time, from Shake Shack. He was there for many years, an operator at all kinds of big Shake Shacks in the world, and very lucky to bring Michael on to our team to have real operational excellence and run a really great business, first for our people and for our guests. And so made me think of that is absolutely we our team is is in it, and they expect high standards for themselves and for our guests, and so we'll keep it nice. And I suspect that whatever direction we choose with any white facade, we'll be power washing that thing pretty often, and that's what it takes to keep it looking nice.
Yeah, I think it's good. Well, again, I think it's a beautiful design, and I do feel kind of bad getting in the way of it and suggesting alternatives, but I think for myself, it's just kind of it is the charge of this body to be thinking about appropriateness. It's such a lesson in individual aesthetics is not the charge here. It's what's on Main Street or any other district. When do you think you would be getting to the facade?
In my dream world next week, but no, I mean it's going to be several months. It's going to be. I think realistically, we're probably February, March. Yeah, and if you'd asked me several weeks ago, I would have said
November.
January.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
at least. One of the things that set us back probably at least a month is the floor in that space. We didn't know what was going to happen. We opened it up and we knew that there might be a possibility, but you take up that old floor that was tiles and then look at the subfloor and take up the old plywood and it's just literally the entire floor. So we need to pour concrete to build an entire new foundation and floor in there, which is a pretty substantial job. So that's probably a month or 6 weeks behind. Yeah, probably February, March, and hopefully if all goes according to plan, be open April.
Right.
Construction dependent.
Well, let me summarize what I think I'm hearing. Pretty strong preference for brick over tile. I'm happy to back away from stucco if your inclination is not towards stucco. And I think that maybe our next meeting in January is quite early. It's the 9th of January. What I'm thinking is if we agree that the brick is the way to go, but maybe we get down to the details of what brick, any tile on the bench, and maybe size of the bench, and just sort of the more micro elements of the design. And have you back here for what we hope would be a much shorter meeting, just to kind of cross T's and dot I's on the 9th of January.
Would love to. That's
Should be a Monday, second Monday. Is that free for you?
It is. Yes, we would love to. And we can certainly have the team show those elements, whatever those are.
Yeah, what would really help us, and I would guess that they're very capable of doing this, is if you could get what's sometimes called a photorealistic rendering, which would be a shot of Main Street from actually kind of in the intersection, or let's say maybe standing on the corner where the mailbox is near the bank. It'd be a photograph of that part of Main Street into which they kind of Photoshop the new design.
Yeah.
So we're actually getting a photograph that kind of turns into a rendering that gives us the streetscape. And then we can get down to the business of exactly the size of tile, what's going on with the ground and with the mortar.
Yes.
And anything else. Did you get any clarity on the signage?
Yes, and I had remembered my conversation and couldn't remember all the specifics with Corey. I spoke to him earlier this week and he said it is fine and all good. And we will get the permit from him.
Okay, because that I just wasn't sure how that ratio works and how that formula.
Yeah, I when you said it, I had. We of course had to, we in Kingston we do planning board and zoning board because we were changing so much about the whole property up there, and had been through all of that, and so I had remembered that I had asked him, but then when you mentioned it, it's like a momentary heart attack. But then another conversation. I said, was there something I forgot or missed? And then no, he confirmed our previous conversation.
My guess is Home Studios might have even looked it up, but probably did something. Colleagues, does this sound like a good way forward, that we would just keep everything open? The public hearing is actually closed, but I guess we could, the meeting would be advertised, and at our discretion, we could hear from members of the public if we want. But I think this feels like a pretty good compromise between the visibility that you want and the appropriateness that and consistency that we're charged with that.
Can I ask a question about the request for the photo realist? Is it if I talk to them and they tell me it's going to cost $1,000 or something, that how is it requisite or is it a
No,
nice to have?
Well.
I would love to do it. We just,
Yeah,
we
it's
asked
so-
them. for a
they're
while.
so helpful.
Yeah.
To us.
Sure.
What do you think? I mean, I suppose even a photo, it would be great if it doesn't cost a lot and feels within the budget. I think it'd be very helpful to us.
Something like, this is what,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
drop in an Audi or something.
I guess that, if it really is burdensome, I mean, we're not in the business of trying to make your project cost that much more, but I think that photograph, side by side with the design that sort of matches in scale.
Yes.
It definitely helps to have it all in one view.
Yeah, we'll talk to them. I'll let you know if it
You
seems
can
like
always
it's gonna be
reach out,
something that's.
yeah. We've already exchanged emails, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so feel free to email them. How do people feel about the bench and potentially penny tile on the bench? I mean, I feel that if we're challenged on that point, we can say it's not a permanent structure. It's a structure that's tied to a business.
Did you try to get that tile in the same Pantone color as your sign?